Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is William Heinman, and this is Just Force 911. I'm your host. Hey, guys, this one here comes to us from the Angry Cops. Go check him out. Give him a like and share. Give him a thumbs up. I don't even know how to start this one. Okay. We are now our government is assassinating squirrels. Yeah, I said that. Assassinating squirrels. The Department of Natural something Resources in New York, for some reason, found that this squirrel and the raccoon were in cahoots together to overthrow the United States government. Yeah, no, that's not it. They found out they were in cahoots to rob a bank. No, that wasn't it either. Well, golly, were they? They were cute. Oh, that's it. They were cute, and they were the spokes or the faces of this wildlife. What do you call it? Rescue facility in New York, and the people at the Department of Natural Resources in or Conservation in New York thought that that they must be eliminated. Now, this is Peanut. Yes, he does eat waffles. Well, he did eat waffles. He doesn't eat waffles anymore because he's, the government took care of him, as they should, because he's a bad squirrel. Oh, my God. He's going to take over the world and run. Oh, he's the Antichrist. That's it. He's the Antichrist. That's what it was. No, it wasn't. Damn, what was that? Anyway, let's watch a video and maybe they'll tell us. The outrage of this is beyond stupidity. I wish they'd find the moron that did this in the government and have him executed or euthanized. Yeah, euthanized. That's it. Because he's a moron and he shouldn't be here.
Outrage is growing tonight after New York State authorities euthanized a local squirrel.
Peanut.
And the raccoon as well.
And the raccoon as well.
Peanut was the cornerstone of our nonprofit animal rescue.
I'm sure you've all heard of Peanut the squirrel already. The squirrel that changed an election. Harambe Part 2. Squirrel and Raccoon Boogaloo. And for those of you that have no idea what I'm talking about, this is Peanut the squirrel and his friend the raccoon. Peanut had a couple million followers on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebooks combined. People liked him, he was adorable. An account bringing positivity to social media. How kind. But unfortunately, Peanut here was put down after a raid by New York State's DEC, Department of Environmental Conservation, who apparently weren't conservating the lives of squirrels on the day they raided Mark's home and picked up Peanut and his little raccoon friend. Not a lot of conservation when the first step is euthanization, DEC. So that's what's been going on in a quick 30-second blurb. And while everybody's talking about how horribly it affected the owner of Peanut, Mark, and how this was such a government overreach, nobody's explaining why it's a government overreach, or how the search warrant could have something as benign as Squirrel and the Raccoon on it. But before I give you the entire backstory, the warrant, and the aftermath, first, a word from this video sponsor. Fume. Have you heard that the flavored air category is becoming the leading alternative to vapes and tobacco? It's a whole new movement towards better habits. We all have bad habits. Mine's picking fights with people on the internet. But many others have a more sinister bad habit of constantly reaching in their pocket to puff on something. Well, what if I told you that all you needed was a better alternative for a more healthy lifestyle? Well, with Black Friday and Cyber Monday coming up, Fuma's gonna help you out by giving you the unbeatable deal of if you buy one Journey pack, you get the second one for 70% off. Pow! Guilt-free, non-addictive, and you can use it everywhere. It's modern design that helps you fidget around when you get that uncontrollable urge, and plus the flavors are delicious. Make you forget about any bad habit after a tasty puff. So if you're thinking of giving Fume a try, there's no better time than now. Head to tryfume.com/angrycops and use my code AngryCops that you'll see down there to get a fantastic Black Friday and Cyber Monday deal. Plus, be entered to win a gold-plated Fume. Go ahead, scan the QR code on the screen and grab your offer today. Now, every story starts at the beginning, and let's figure out who Peanut and Mark Longo actually are before we get into the nitty-gritty of the search warrant. While living around New York City, Mark was working, looked down one day, saw a little baby squirrel, ain't got no mama, that's Peanut, brings Peanut in, nurses him to health, and then says, all right, little squirrel, out you go. Now, for those of you that are unaware of the habits of squirrels, they're to one another. And a day or two later, Peanut came hipping and hopping on back, as squirrels often do, to Mark, a suddenly handsome man with a chin as strong as steel and biceps that are just glistening. All right, I'm sorry, Mark, I'm sorry. But Peanut was injured again, missing a chunk of his tail.
I have an injured squirrel.
Because, like I said, squirrels to one another. So Mark, being the big-hearted guy that he is, took Peanut in for good, domesticated him, and then started a couple online social media accounts to show his kooky friend Peanut the Squirrel and the fun times they would have in his apartment. Isn't that charming? Well, a couple million people thought so because, boom, after 7 years, that's right, Mark has had Peanut for 7 years. And his social media blew up. Almost 1 million followers on Instagram. I think over 1 million on TikTok. Facebook's up there too. Well, it's just one normal guy and his kooky squirrel buddy jumping around and eating waffles and Pop-Tarts and dressing up in funny costumes for Halloween. Adorable stuff that makes you go, aw, the world isn't a complete and toxic piece of shit. And after growing quite a good following, Mark and Peanut had a little bit of scratch, a little bit of money, and you know what they wanted to do with it? No, not blow it all on blow and hookers. They wanted to create an animal rescue in middle New York. Oh, isn't that nice? An animal rescue. Where today there is over 300 different animals that Mark is taking care of with his big heart and his even bigger muscles. I'm talking horses, goats, alpacas, chickens. If it's hurt and it's wounded and walking around funny, Mark is picking it up from the side of the road and rehabilitating it some. In fact, Mark and Peanut became so popular that news agencies were knocking on the door and doing interviews with Mark and Peanut. Even international news organizations were stopping in and doing a feel-good story with Peanut. The squirrel not only has 2 million plus followers, it's on national and international news as an adorable squirrel that is warming the hearts of millions. But unfortunately, no news story for the pair would be quite as large as the day that Peanut died.
Outrage is growing tonight after New York State authorities euthanized a local squirrel.
Peanut.
And the raccoon as well.
And the raccoon as well. I am so sorry.
Because early on the morning of October 30th, Mark's home in mid-state New York got raided by the DEC. They handed him a warrant. They separated him and his wife from one another, 2 different rooms, don't be talking. And they started searching that house for a squirrel named Peanut.
If you're looking for a really neat, inexpensive Christmas gift for your kids or your niece or nephew or
and Fred, the raccoon. A warrant for Peanut the Squirrel and Fred the raccoon. Let's break down that warrant, shall we? Now, I only have the first and last page of it, and warrants are a little, I don't want to say tricky. They're interesting things. We'll go over that in a little bit. First, let's read the warrant from the state of New York, County Court, County of Chemung. You can chemung my balls. The first page isn't anything too mind-boggling. It says, hey, this is who's requesting the warrant, this is who they work for, this is who they need to help them out. And also, here's the location that we would like to go in search of some of these things that we need. What is it that we need in this search warrant? The last page tells us. Reasonable cause to believe having been established that property of the kind and character described by CPL 69010, property that is unlawfully possessed, and CPL 69010, again, property that constitutes evidence or tends to demonstrate that an offense was committed in New York, can be found at Redacted, the home of Mark, Chemung County, New York, including but not limited to unlawful possession of a gray squirrel, black in color. Why I gotta be a black squirrel, huh? Why I gotta be black? Why you be like that, huh? A raccoon and any other unlawfully possessed wildlife. And below that, you
Okay, so is this a racist thing? Since it was a black squirrel? Now you can't be a squirrel while black? Oh my God.
are hereby authorized to enter the above premises and seize all items listed in application, to seize all other illegally possessed wildlife or parts or articles containing parts thereof, to enter and search the business between the hours of 6 and 9 p.m. and to remain until the work is completed. Dated 10/29/2024, and the following day is the day that Peanut was collected as evidence. Now, you've read that right. Squirrels and raccoons are illegal to possess as pets in New York. Strange, I know. Now, laws like this are usually put in place because, well, raccoons carry rabies, sometimes so do squirrels, and other infectious diseases that could negatively affect the populace in an area. Oh, interesting. Now, some, like myself, might think that a rehabilitation center for animals might be some sort of, I don't know, might be excluded from some sort of list like this because, you know, they're rehabilitating animals, but hey, we'll hold off on that for now. But I'm sure you're saying, you know, this search warrant really didn't say anything. It said who was requesting it, where they wanted to go, and what were the things that they wanted to find. And you're right. You see, New York State search warrants come in two different pieces. There's the search warrant, which is very bland and basic, which you just read, and the application for a search warrant, also known as a search warrant affidavit. There are several organizations and people, including Mark, that have put forward a FOIA, a Freedom of Information Act request, in order to get the affidavit, because the affidavit, also known as a search warrant application, will have far much more information in it. It's going to have who the officers talked to in order to gather the information on this offense of owning a squirrel and rehabilitating a raccoon, as well as the information that the investigation collected to prove, or at least give reasonable suspicion, probable cause, that a crime had occurred. And then that crime would elicit a search warrant to find the property that should be inside that home. So the affidavit is going to have who investigated, the information that they received, what they then uncovered regarding the illegal activity, and how they recovered that information. So if somebody's feeding them info confidentially, they're gonna say a confidential informant told us that this, and this happened. If they sat there and used their binoculars to spy on the squirrel in his home,
Oh, that's hot. That's hot.
they're gonna say that they did surveillance. What I would like to see in the affidavit is, did they look at the social media? Because if they did, holy guys, 7 years worth of videos, I think the squirrel's okay. If they did look at the social media and then decided to bum rush the door and not be a little more tactful, not tactical, tactful, maybe things would have ended up a little different. Once again, it's a squirrel that's been tamed and a raccoon that's just there until he feels better. This isn't a drug den filled with cocaine high, crazy murdering shooters from Venezuela MS-519. It's a squirrel. And honestly, when you're rolling up to this house, do you not see the big sign that says Peanuts Sanctuary and not think, huh, maybe this place might have some sort of legal standing, or maybe they're just not educated in the legal standings. Perhaps we should kinda take our foot off the gas here, slow down, and maybe not piss off millions of people with the actions we're about to do.
Well, it's too late now.
Okay, you want the government to slow down and not piss people off. Are you high? That's what our government does. They don't know how to be reasonable. They don't know how to take their foot off the gas. They don't know how to get their head out of their ass, let alone find it. You know, our government could be sitting on their hands and not be able to find their ass. That's how messed up this is. When you assassinate a squirrel, you assassinate a raccoon that is being rehabilitated. What is wrong with you people?
But something tells me that the DEC already had made up its mind on what to do with little Peanut and Fred the raccoon. What do you say we give a listen to the local news and a statement from the DEC themselves?
The Chemung County Department of Health and the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation are coordinating to ensure the protection of public health related to the illegal possession of wild animals that have the potential to carry the rabies virus.
You see, a specific line from that DEC quote has me thinking that poor Peanut and Fred were gonna be done the second that they picked up those animals and seized them.
I am inevitable.
That there was never any sort of chance for them to be alive after they had been seized. And it's this line right here.
The potential to carry the rabies virus.
Now, if this investigation is for rabies, this whole entire investigation on the raccoon and the squirrel is rabies based. There is only one way to determine if an animal is infected with rabies.
Bring on the guillotine.
Testing a piece of their brain.
Can't you watch the animal to see if it's infected? I mean, we have 7 years of video. Wouldn't it have shown up by now? Really?
And I don't know if you know this about animals, they need 100% of their brains to live. So if this is a rabies investigation, which will lead to the testing of rabies, that means that this entire investigation was always going to lead to the death of Peanut the squirrel and Freddy the raccoon. So now that we've talked about the paragraph, let's talk about hindsight. Shall we? Where are you at, Captain Hindsight?
You want to talk about hindsight with the government? Oh, please.
Investigator Crane. Josh. Why was this necessary? What kind of investigation did you and your team do? Honestly, this is a real question. I'm not trying to be some... Who gives a f if a guy has a squirrel and has it for 7 years? Obviously, if there is some sort of rabies issue, the squirrel would be dead already, or the whole house would be infected with rabies. But 7 years of domestication would be a red flag that this squirrel is probably fine. And by the way, you can take a squirrel or a raccoon or any other animal that could be potentially infected with rabies, and you can put them in a tank and you can watch them for a week and go, oh, they're not showing any of the signs of rabies. We believe that they are okay, and then release them back to the frickin' owners. Or in this case, Mark, who would be the owner of the squirrel, not the owner of the raccoon, but the head of the animal sanctuary, the rehabilitation place for animals. Inspector Crane, where is the due diligence here? Did you not look at the social media account and be like, oh, millions of followers? This could be a PR nightmare. We might want to tread carefully. By the way, we're going to an animal rescue sanctuary. Maybe this person is just ill-informed. By the way, for those of you in law enforcement, yes, we enforce the law, but we also assist people in understanding it a little bit better. And from the DEC standpoint, maybe murking a squirrel and a raccoon isn't necessary. And we could just go up to Mark and say, hey, you're doing this wrong. There are some negative consequences potentially down the line. How about you fill out some paperwork to get this animal registered in some sort of way or form or fashion so that you're covered and you're doing it legally by the law. Dot your I's, cross your T's. Let's work together as members of this community. But that
You want the government to work something out? What is wrong with you? They don't do that. They assassinate squirrels. So does that mean that ferrets and rabbits and chickens can't be pets? Really?
That didn't happen, did it? I know that raccoons have rabies, all right? But even then, the raccoon was only with Mark for a couple months rehabilitating. You didn't even give him enough time to make the mistake of trying to keep the raccoon as a pet. But the squirrel, why can't we keep squirrels as pets? Holy I'm not saying that everybody should just go up and grab a wild animal and now it's your freaking kid's plaything. But what's the next step in this? Huh? We gonna start fining people that feed the squirrels at Central Park and just go in there with night vision goggles?
Bravo 6. Going dark.
Start murking squirrels. You doing some night ops outside of every bakery and freaking restaurant in New York City, waiting for the squirrels to go trash panda-ing and then murking them. Inspector Crane, quick! Raccoons are coming out of the trash bin! We're being surrounded! Now, Mark said that he was getting an educational animal certificate for Peanut. Now, I don't know how far along in the process Mark was, or if he was just saying that because he knew that was an option but didn't get it started yet. But let's just say that he was just getting it started. He just understood it, and then that next day, you come in and take out his squirrel. DEC, you took out the class pet. You literally took out the class pet. What's next, huh? We gonna just start executing Big Bird on Sesame Street because he might have the bird flu?
Snuffleupagus? Is that you?
And one of the statements that the DEC put out was that one of the officers, while grabbing at and finding and seizing Peanut the squirrel, was bit by Peanut. And they had to get him tested for rabies because, hey, you don't want to get rabies. And that's why they had to put him down. Well, one of the reasons. Which leads me to ask a question.
So why wouldn't you have protective gloves on and protective equipment to allow an animal like him that to bite you?
I would assume you'd be wearing thick gloves in case the squirrel, I don't know, tried to bite you. Or, now hear me out, right? Maybe if we didn't kick in the door and act like an to the owner, we could ask the owner, once again, who's got hundreds of videos of the squirrel just doing exactly what he tells him to do because the squirrel's domesticated, to find the squirrel, get him, put him into a cage so that there is no incident. Oh, I wonder if that happened. I wonder if they asked Mark, could you find your fucking squirrel and put him in a crate for us so we don't have to do something stupid? Did anybody ask that? No? But it doesn't matter because, like I said, the mission from the start was to test the animals for rabies, which means lopping off their head, scooping out a chunk of brain, and putting it underneath the microscope. And of course, the story caught on like freaking wildfire. Everybody's saying justice for Peanut, and Peanut's the reason why Trump's gonna get elected. There are tons of people in the comments that are like, who gives a shit about a squirrel? Why is everybody so upset about a squirrel? Because if the government's gonna be so potentially stupid and reckless to not do any back investigation on a 1 million follower animal whose presence is funding an animal rescue that has been interviewed nationally and internationally, if they don't do their due diligence on that and automatically go to your house to kill your pet that you've owned for 7 years, do you think they give a shit about you? Now, one of my state representatives put out a fantastic tweet saying, what the f going on? I need some answers. Hope you get them. And I hope that there's some sort of accountability because this entire thing is so stupid in regards to the DEC and the way this warrant was executed, that there should be some freaking backlash. There should be people looking into this and going, what were you thinking? Can't wait to see the next warrant signed on for the reclamation of a squirrel. I hope every judge just goes, a squirrel? You're doing a warrant for a squirrel. If you do some stupid peanut again, I'll fucking have the attorney generals go after you. Do you want me to sign it? You know I'm not gonna sign it. You're gonna do some more homework, then you're gonna come back to me on why this is such a big deal that I, a judge in New York State, need to sign a warrant for a squirrel. You're gonna go back, you're gonna do more work. I don't care what work it is, you're gonna do more of it. And then you're gonna come back and show me all that work, and then I'll think about signing it.
Get out. Get out.
And as if that isn't enough, allow me to give you 2 additional DEC stories. One of them's gonna go to Pepperbox, so if you wanna listen to that story, you gotta go to Pepperbox and check us out. I'll put a link down there below. Uncensored and additional content. Anywho, 1, there's an older gentleman down in Western New York by the Pennsylvania border, and he owns a pawn shop, an antique shop, if you will. He's got a whole bunch of old trinkets, old things. He's got a fake lion skin draped over an old chair. Well, he ends up passing away, and his son takes over the shop. And the week that his son takes over the antique shop, boom, it gets raided by the DEC. You know why? Because that lion skin that's been draped over the chair for 50 years, I'm not exaggerating, 50 years, turns out to be real. And because Dad died and didn't dispose of it or some sort of way, and it transferred over to his son, he now has basically the same thing as ivory tusks that you're not allowed to have. He gets arrested, put into jail, fined, can't have a pistol permit, has to try and fight to get his pistol permit back, all because his dad at an antique shop had a lion's freaking skin there that the DEC already knew about, but once Dad died and transferred all in the store to his son, the DEC swoops in, arrests the guy, and him.
Well, keep in mind, that's what our government does. They don't do any research. They're a bunch of thugs with badges, and you can't hold these idiots accountable. So what do you think they're going to do?
There's a big secret being hidden from drivers, so listen up before this video gets removed. If you're being insured by any of...
Wow.
A week later...
Breaking news! The DEC union put out a letter 2 days ago stating, hey, we're a little upset with this whole squirrel thing. Everybody needs to settle down a little bit. So let's read portions of this letter together and see if it changes our minds or brings light to something new that we didn't know about before. That's what I like about you guys. Keeping an open mind. The first 2 paragraphs kind of gloss over the hate that the DEC has been getting. Bomb threats are not something that you should be doing when you're upset about a squirrel, right? The squirrel being euthanized is an overstep. Making a bomb threat is a massive overstep and overcorrection, overreaction. Just, let's not commit felonies on top of felonies, all right? It also goes on to say that some of the members of the DEC have been getting threats, and now as much as everybody wants to hold everybody and the appropriate people accountable for things, let's keep this in mind. The head of the DEC may not be aware of every single warrant that's going out throughout New York State, just as the head of the New York State Troopers is not going to be aware of every single warrant going out throughout the state of New York. Now, should the chain of command be held responsible for those below them? Yes. Now, how does being responsible look? Well, time will tell. But now that we learned about some of the overreaction and the things we shouldn't do, nothing wrong with texting your congressmen or representatives, though, to tell them how mad you are. Absolutely do that. Let's get into the investigation parts that, I don't think the public has been aware of yet. While the investigation is ongoing and certain facts cannot yet be disclosed, we can provide the following information. The investigation was initiated in January of this year when several New York State licensed wildlife rehabilitators filed complaints with the agency that Mark Longo was operating an illegal wildlife sanctuary. Following up on these complaints, an environmental conservation officer contacted Mr. Longo, informing him that keeping a squirrel is illegal unless he was a licensed wildlife rehabilitator, with the intent of preparing the animal to re-enter nature. Mr. Longo told investigators that the squirrel had been released to the wild. Okay, so although it's a wildlife sanctuary, it's not a real rehabilitation sanctuary, at least licensed by New York, and other licensed rehabilitation centers for animals were upset. I mean, understandably so. If it costs money and time for you to do the right thing, I would be upset if somebody just started doing some when it took me a whole bunch of a long legal process in order to get it done. Hey, why is that guy getting special treatment? I had to do all this. Why doesn't he? At the same time, how much fucking legal paperwork is it to get a rehabilitation place for animals started? This is part of the bureaucracy that people don't like. I want to save some freaking animals. Well, you've got to pay this fine, you've got to do this thing and fill out this paperwork. I just thought I needed a barn and food and people willing to help me. No, sir. No. It's not that easy. Of course it isn't that easy. Thanks a lot, New York. Oh, I'm still upset. I'm still upset. After the warning was issued, complaints continued to be received by DEC, and DEC management ordered an investigation. A DEC investigator conducted a review of Mr. Longo's social media accounts, which showed that Longo had lied to the investigator and had not released the squirrel into the wild. In addition to keep the squirrel in violation of the law, Longo had also taken in a raccoon, which appeared in social media postings as well. Mr. Longo's social media posts were the basis for the search warrant issued by a judge. All right. Who gives a about the squirrel? 7 years. I stand by this. 7 years. This animal can't take care of itself, and you're supposed to release it in the wild? You already tried that, allegedly. And come on, Mark. Brother, you think that they're not looking at your social media posts? You think that they're not looking at you saying, if this guy posts another freaking squirrel video with that squirrel he said he got rid of, well, we just can't sit here and do nothing. Media reports portrayed the seizure as being carried out by 10 to 12 agents of the state, making it sound as if it were a tactical raid. In truth, there were 3 uniformed environmental correction officers who were responsible for securing an 80-acre compound, several plainclothes investigators who carried out the search pursuant to the warrant, and 3 DEC wildlife employees who were not police officers. Now, every time a civilian person says, I was raided and there was 30 cops there, it's not like there was 30 SWAT members. Yeah, I get it. There was a bunch of people there, and it's still overwhelming for a person who's just, helping rescue some horses and squirrels. And can we not agree on that? After locating the squirrel, it bit one of the DEC civilian wildlife biologists through 2 pairs of protective gloves. Damn! Homie's got some sharp teeth. Due to the injury, the Chemung County Department of Health was contacted, and the squirrel and raccoon were turned over alive. The Chemung County Department of Health made the determination to humanely euthanize both, as it is the only way to test for rabies, as rabies testing requires taking a sample of brain matter. But we already know that the warrant was for testing. So the squirrel and the raccoon were already dead, man. They were already dead. While squirrels do not typically carry rabies, the cohabitation with the raccoon, a species known to be a vector for rabies, opened the possibility of animal-to-animal transmission, which placed the wildlife biologist in potential danger. This was unfortunate, but the decision was not made by the environmental conservation officers, investigators, or DEC wildlife biologists participating in the service of this warrant. 2 things can be true at the same time. All right. A guy trying to start a rehabilitation for animals center might be doing it the wrong way. Hey, heart's in the right place, okay? But that gosh dang paperwork just isn't filled out yet. Perhaps an education would be better. Now, if we started this back in January, I'm looking at Mark with a little bit of, come on, bud. Come on, we got to solve the situation. Because the other side of that same coin, right, is that, Mark, you need to be a little bit more responsible with what's going on here. All right, fill out the correct paperwork. Make sure the squirrel is on the correct path, or at least you've begun it, for the squirrel to be an educational animal, okay? Now, I'm not saying that Mark's inability to do paperwork on time should be the reason why a raid was done for a squirrel. But, Mark, since January, it's 9 months ago, man. I still don't like it. I still think it's freaking stupid. Common sense, to me, says we should make it a fairly easy process to become an animal sanctuary.
You want to use common sense and the U.S. government together. Wow. Talk about overreach.
Yeah, sure. Have the DEC go in there and check up on things every year, every couple months. Whatever you want to make sure it's not some, slaughterhouse that's being used to kill pandas.
Panda watch.
I still see the legitimate representation of Peanut the Squirrel's demise being a horrible yet perfect example of government overreach. Or government preventing people from doing the things they want because of the red tape and paperwork and bureaucracy and...
This just in, breaking news, Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch just made an article saying that Peanut the Squirrel is a classic sign of government overreach. Congratulations, Mark. You, your wife, Peanut are gonna get justice. You can sue the living balls out of everybody that touched that warrant, because a Supreme Court justice, the highest court in the United States, just said complete, horrible overreach by the government. You've got it made in the shade. Peanuts Freedom Farm will live on for forever.
But that's all I have for today. Best way to support the channel is get yourself a shirt. There's only a couple hoodies left. Grab a hoodie. Those are nice. Get yourself an Acorn shirt. They're still up there. An Acorn one for frickin' Peanut. Is it a coincidence or a conspiracy? Right? The acorns come falling down. The cop goes crazy, starts shooting everywhere. Everybody's afraid of acorns. Who eats acorns? Squirrels. We're trying to get rid of the squirrel population, so we kill their food supply. We make that evil. Then we go after the squirrels with warrants. Now there's no.
Okay, guys. So what do you think about this? This is, I don't even know what to say. You know, you got the Department of Environmental, whatever the hell it is, and they are assassinating squirrels and raccoons. You got the Supreme Court justice who says it's a travesty. No, what it is the overreach of our government, and we need to get this overreach taken care of and get it back to the people. This is absolutely ridiculous. You know, this is what we talk about. So let me know what you guys think, and I hope you like this. This has been fun, guys. Remember, this is just my opinion of stuff, and holy mackerel, you can't make stuff like this up. This has been the funnest half hour I've spent in a long time. Thanks, guys. Have a good one. We'll talk to you soon.